The young Navy diver watched the scuba instructor's underwater approach technique and went completely still. That specific entry pattern, that precise buoyancy control, he'd only seen it in classified Navy SEAL combat swimming manuals. He surfaced and whispered to his team leader, "That's not a dive instructor. That's a combat swimmer." Welcome to Daily Story. Before we dive into this extraordinary tale of underwater expertise and hidden military training, tell us in the comments what city you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like these deserve to be told, hit that subscribe button to join our community. The crystal clear waters off Key West attracted divers from around the world to explore coral reefs, historic shipwrecks, and marine sanctuaries that offered some of the best underwater visibility in North America. Dive shops lined the waterfront, competing for tourists with promises of expert instruction and access to the most spectacular dive sites in the Florida Keys. Blue Horizon Dive Center occupied a weathered building at the end of Caroline Street, where Maya Rodriguez had worked as a scuba instructor for 8 years. At 36, she had the lean build and sun-weathered appearance of someone who spent 6 days a week underwater, leading certification courses and guiding experienced divers to sites that challenged their skills and expanded their understanding of marine environments. Her students knew her as the instructor who demanded perfect technique, insisted on flawless safety protocols, and could navigate underwater terrain with precision that bordered on supernatural. She spoke fluent Spanish and Portuguese, useful skills for communicating with international diving students, and had an uncanny ability to predict weather and current changes hours before they affected dive conditions. Maya lived in a small apartment above the dive shop, spartanly furnished but comfortable, with one wall devoted to advanced diving certifications and underwater photography that showcased 8 years of exploring Florida's marine environment. Her neighbors knew her as the quiet woman who left for work before sunrise and often returned after sunset, always carrying diving gear that looked more sophisticated than typical recreational equipment. What Maya's students didn't know, what Blue Horizon's owner couldn't have suspected from her employment history, was that Petty Officer First Class Maya Rodriguez, United States Navy, had spent 12 years as a special warfare combat craft crewman, one of the elite underwater specialists who supported Navy SEAL operations around the world. She had conducted covert insertions in hostile waters, executed underwater demolition missions, and performed combat swimming operations in conditions that would have killed recreational divers. Her training included techniques for underwater navigation without instruments, breath-hold diving to depths that challenged human physiology, and combat swimming maneuvers designed to approach targets without detection. The transition from military special operations to civilian dive instruction had been part of a carefully planned retirement. After 12 years of underwater missions that required absolute precision and split-second decision-making, Maya had chosen work that used her diving expertise to introduce others to the underwater world rather than conducting operations designed to remain invisible. Her apartment contained diving equipment that wasn't available to civilian instructors, military-grade rebreathers that produced no bubbles, underwater navigation systems accurate to within inches, and diving computers that could calculate decompression requirements for depths and bottom times that exceeded recreational limits. Maya had found peace in the predictable rhythms of dive instruction. Each day brought familiar challenges, teaching nervous beginners to trust their equipment, guiding experienced divers to explore new sites, and ensuring that everyone returned to the surface safely. She served a community of diving enthusiasts while using skills that preserved life rather than ended it. The morning of September 18th started like any other fall day in the Keys. Maya was preparing equipment for an advanced open water certification course when she noticed an unusual amount of military activity around the Naval Air Station Key West. Navy helicopters were conducting training exercises, and she could see the distinctive profile of military diving support vessels positioned offshore. Her students for the day included 6 civilian divers working toward their advanced certifications, plus 2 young men who had identified themselves as off-duty Navy personnel interested in recreational diving. The Navy divers, Petty Officer Marcus Webb and Petty Officer James Kim, carried themselves with a professional bearing that Maya recognized immediately from her own military service. The dive site Maya had selected was the USS Vandenberg, a decommissioned Navy transport ship that had been sunk in 140 feet of water to create an artificial reef. The wreck provided excellent training opportunities for advanced divers while challenging their skills in navigation, buoyancy control, and underwater problem-solving. During the pre-dive briefing, Maya outlined the descent profile, navigation plan, and emergency procedures with military precision that impressed her civilian students but made the Navy divers pay closer attention. Her safety protocols exceeded recreational diving standards and included contingencies for scenarios that most civilian instructors never considered. We'll descend along the anchor line to 120 feet, conduct a systematic exploration of the upper decks, then ascend using a controlled safety stop profile, Maya explained. Maintain buddy contact at all times, follow my navigation signals exactly, and execute emergency procedures on my command without question. Petty Officer Webb noticed that Maya's briefing language included terminology and procedures that were taught in military diving schools but weren't part of civilian certification programs. Her emphasis on precise navigation and absolute discipline suggested training that went beyond recreational diving instruction. The descent to the Vandenberg proceeded flawlessly, with Maya leading the group using underwater navigation techniques that allowed her to locate specific sections of the wreck with pinpoint accuracy. Her buoyancy control was perfect. She could hover motionless at any depth while conducting equipment adjustments or assisting students with their skills. Petty Officer Kim, swimming slightly behind the main group, observed Maya's underwater movement patterns with growing recognition. Her fin techniques, body positioning, and approach angles were textbook examples of combat swimming methods taught exclusively in Navy special warfare programs. 20 minutes into the dive, Maya demonstrated advanced wreck penetration techniques by leading the group through interior passages that required precise navigation and perfect buoyancy control. She moved through tight spaces with efficiency that suggested extensive experience in underwater environments where mistakes could be fatal. When they reached a section of the wreck where strong currents created challenging conditions, Maya positioned herself to shield the less experienced divers while maintaining perfect stability in water that was buffeting the rest of the group. Her technique for managing current and surge demonstrated expertise that exceeded civilian diving training. Petty Officer Webb watched Maya execute a navigation turn that he had only seen performed by Navy SEALs during combat swimming exercises. The maneuver required simultaneous control of buoyancy, position, and direction while maintaining awareness of team positioning, a skill set that took years of military training to master. As the group began their ascent, Maya demonstrated safety stop procedures that included contingencies for equipment failure, emergency air sharing, and rapid ascent protocols that weren't taught in civilian diving courses. Her safety stop was timed with precision that suggested automatic familiarity with military decompression procedures. When the group surfaced, Petty Officer Kim immediately swam to where Webb was removing his regulator. "Marcus, did you see her underwater navigation and buoyancy technique?" "Yeah, I was watching the same thing. That wasn't recreational diving instruction. She was using combat swimming methods." Webb approached Maya as she was helping civilian students with their post-dive equipment checks. "Ma'am, that was impressive underwater navigation. Where did you learn those techniques?" Maya continued securing diving equipment while responding. "Experience, mostly. These waters require precision navigation to stay safe." "Ma'am, with respect, those weren't civilian diving techniques. You were using approach patterns and buoyancy control methods that I've only seen in Navy special warfare training." Maya looked at Webb with the calm assessment of someone evaluating how much to reveal. She had spent 8 years avoiding this conversation, but her skills had finally been recognized by people qualified to identify them. "Petty Officer Webb, what brings Navy divers to recreational diving instruction?" "Training exercise, ma'am. But now I'm more interested in understanding how a civilian dive instructor knows combat swimming techniques." Webb was joined by his diving partner, who had been conducting his own assessment of Maya's underwater capabilities. "Ma'am, that navigation you demonstrated in the wreck, that was tactical insertion methodology. That level of precision requires specialized military training." Maya secured the last piece of equipment and looked across the water toward Naval Air Station Key West, where she could see training exercises continuing. "Petty officers, some skills transfer between different types of diving operations." "Not these skills, ma'am. You were compensating for current and surge using techniques that are classified for special warfare operations. That requires training that civilian instructors don't have access to." Maya made a decision based on 8 years of maintaining civilian cover and recognition that qualified professionals had identified her expertise. "I served with the Naval Special Warfare Command from 2008 to 2020. Combat craft crewman, SEAL support operations." Webb and Kim exchanged glances of recognition and respect. Combat craft crewmen were among the most elite underwater specialists in the Navy, responsible for getting SEAL teams to their targets and extracting them under impossible conditions. "Ma'am, that explains everything we observed underwater. You weren't just teaching diving, you were demonstrating combat swimming without realizing it." "Old habits," Maya said simply. "Ma'am, we're conducting training exercises that could benefit from your expertise. Would you consider consulting on underwater navigation and combat swimming techniques?" Maya looked at her civilian diving students, who were packing equipment and planning their next certification dives, unaware that their instructor possessed skills that could revolutionize military underwater operations. "What kind of training exercises?" "Advanced combat swimming, underwater demolition support, and SEAL insertion techniques. We need instructors who understand both the technical requirements and the operational realities of special warfare diving." Maya considered the offer while watching tourist boats heading out for afternoon diving excursions. She had built a peaceful civilian life teaching recreational diving, but the military community was asking her to share expertise that could save lives during actual combat operations. I'll consult on technique development and safety protocols. But I want to maintain my civilian diving instruction. This community depends on qualified instructors, and I found purpose in teaching people to explore the underwater world safely. 6 months later, Maya Rodriguez was still teaching scuba diving at Blue Horizon Dive Center, but now she also spent weekends at Naval Air Station Key West training military divers in advanced combat swimming techniques and underwater navigation methods developed during 12 years of special warfare operations. Her civilian dive shop had been quietly upgraded with advanced diving equipment that could support technical diving operations, and she had established training programs that bridged civilian and military diving communities. Maya had learned that retiring from military service didn't mean abandoning specialized expertise. It meant finding ways to use that knowledge to serve both civilian and military communities while maintaining the peaceful life she had built in the Florida Keys. The dive instructor who had taught tourists to explore coral reefs had become the trainer who ensured that Navy divers could execute combat swimming operations with precision that could mean the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. Sometimes the most valuable military training is preserved by people who choose civilian careers but remain ready to share their expertise when the mission requires capabilities that can't be learned from textbooks. Maya Rodriguez had discovered that true service meant using specialized knowledge wherever it could save lives, whether teaching recreational divers to explore safely or training military swimmers to complete missions that protect national security. So now I ask you, have you ever known someone whose professional skills seemed to exceed what their current job required? Someone who handled challenging situations with competence that suggested much more demanding previous training? Share their story in the comments below. Tell us about the hidden experts in your life, the ones who bring specialized skills to ordinary jobs and make everyone safer because of their knowledge. And if this story moved you, if it reminded you that expertise often hides in unexpected places, hit that subscribe button and join the Daily Story community. We're here to honor the underwater specialists, the combat veterans, the people who use their skills to serve others while building new lives in civilian communities. Thank you for watching, and remember, the next time you encounter a diving instructor, swimming coach, or water safety professional who demonstrates unusual expertise, look a little closer. You might be learning from someone who has dedicated their career to mastering skills that few people can imagine.